Hello, thank you everybody for joining. We will get started here in a couple of minutes. Okay, it's 1 minute past the hour. We'll just give it a few more seconds here and we will get rolling. Thank you all for joining today. Okay, well, let's get started. Hello, my name is Mike Eisterer. I'm a solutions engineer with Push Technology, and I am joined by Martin Cowie, our head of education, and also Martin Hand, our director of sales for EMEA, who has a large number of sportsbook customers. And so today's session is and webinar is building sportsbook applications with Diffusion. Let's move to the next slide here. All right, so I'm just kind of doing a level set and introduction to whom a sportsbook is, what they do. They're an organization, an entity which accepts bets, which basically provides the opportunity for customers, for gamers and players, or as they're known in the UK and EMEA as punters, the ability really to interact with an interface with services that exposes specific events and exposes types of events. And then within those events, there are markets, types of bets, and then there are the actual market lines themselves, which are the odds, spread, money lines, which a particular gamer could click on and create a bet. So sportsbooks work with individuals with these types of bets. It's typically for the outcome of a game. And there are also bets which can be in play, in game. And their processes to balance these bets, to dynamically modify the odds of these bets to attract bets on either side of that particular event for either team, either home or away. And it's a fairly complex process, but all very critical in seeing data and working with data, which is in real time. And so when I'm a bettor, when I'm about to place wagers and start my user experience, my fan and betting experience, I'm really looking for these market lines, what the odds are by events. I want to see what the board looks like, and I want to have the opportunity to place those bets to really derive the most and greatest level of entertainment for myself. So having a fresh view, seeing those market lines, seeing those actual bets themselves in real time is critical. As a matter of fact, if a bet becomes, or let's say the odds get stale and I click on it, and I click through and I try to create a bet, there could potentially be a chance that I cannot convert that bet. I cannot place that bet because that odd is not available. And so real time is very critical inside of that. And I am looking to place wagers. And as I start to improve, or the sports book improves its reliability in terms of the services that they offer and the performance and speed, they can offer more market lines. They can offer more markets, events, where now as a customer, I could potentially select more and increase the amount of wagers that I place. And obviously, the downstream impact to that sports book then is the increase in revenue, where we see sports books could have thousands of different market lines where customers may place those wagers, and then getting real-time in-play data. And so I did spend a lot of time working with the Vegas market, and it was really about keeping that player in front of the interface. And so, as a player, if I'm getting real-time stats, if I'm getting videos, or if I'm getting information about that particular event or any event that I want to click into, it gives me the opportunity to see what those additional market lines are and potentially add more bets. So that whole fan and player engagement and providing information that is relevant and interesting and applies to that particular customer is critical. And so now I'll interoperatively use the word better or wagerer, punter throughout this presentation, but ultimately they are all customers. And so here, speed is really critical. And so there's a number of studies out there across a number of different industries, retail. They found that for every 100 milliseconds that there's a delay, it impacts their conversion rate. That sales opportunity actually reduces by 1%. That there's and this study was published by a very well-known retailer. And so it's critical, even down to 100 milliseconds, of engaging those customers, engaging those bettors, and providing them with that fresh data. And it's shown that the cost of acquiring customers actually is greater than maintaining those customers. So it's a true value to provide, again, real-time, fresh data to those particular customers. Now, the impact of real time across the sports book goes across quite a bit more than just customer engagement. It's really maintaining those market prices, maintaining the market lines, the odds in real time, giving the sports book an opportunity to add new market lines or adjust them or potentially remove them, or adding brand new markets and events. And so it's kind of, you see on the right, there could be how information is streamed about markets. Top right hand corner is about the status of that particular event, and then the outcomes inside of the scoreboard, which kind of gives us to the next step here of that live center. Delivery of match status, of that event status, how many first down conversions, when do they occur, extra points, completions. And so really giving opportunities inside of the market lines to provide additional betting opportunities for and improving customer satisfaction for those particular gamers. Again, scoreboard in real-time data, having fresh data to act upon to perform your bets, and then seeing the outcome of those inside of the scoreboards itself, or seeing in lifetime about the performance of your current bets is also very, very critical. And then customer bet management, right? So delivery of the latest offers. And in some situations, there's this offering called a cash out, where as a customer, I may have a number of bets, and it may, based upon the progress of that particular event and where my bet is standing, a sports book has the ability to make a decision as to offer this cash out to enable me to recover some of my bet, and also guaranteeing or not guaranteeing, but reducing the risk for that particular sports book and the outcome of what potentially could be a larger payout. And so they're dynamically monitoring these cash outs and managing the bets and by player. And then the wallet management. There'll be funds available to my gamers across a number of different products by NFL, by NHL, etc. So impact truly, real time truly has an impact to real time, real time has an impact to sports books, excuse me. And so here, some of the challenges, again, are agility and time to market. Sports books are constantly innovating. They're adding new offerings. They're trying to convert their customers that visit special and specific events or free play types of customers and add those in as members that are using their services and placing bets, constantly innovating by providing new interfaces, new ways to engage and interact with that particular customer. They're looking to expand into new markets. Markets could be into new geos as sports books and the legalization process is going, expanding into those areas. Colorado recently joined as a new market, but then markets also in terms of new types of betting, potentially expanding into bingo or expanding into casino. So they're constantly viewing how they manage this and how they efficiently deploy into that. There's also a relationship within sports books to other B2B partners. And so in this situation, other entities may be interested in leveraging that sports book itself. And the way that data is shared between these other entities that are starting their own sports books and the master sports book is really through distribution of data and how you replicate that data and make sure that it is in real time. And then branding as well. So Sportsbook may have multiple brands underneath it and effectively sharing that data across these brands in the sportsbook. So agility is important, the ability to add new brands, the ability to add new sources of data in a consistent fashion that really impacts the time to market with these new services is critical. We've seen performance, right? So we've seen increasing volume of new customers, of betting data, of streaming in-play types of data. And organizations and sports books are looking to how to reliably increase the performance across this and looking to technologies that may condense the data, that may stream the data in a compressed fashion, such as Delta types of streaming, which really enables that organization to reduce their data sizes down to 90% or more as it's being streamed. And we'll talk a little bit more about that a little later inside of this webinar, but really increasing the performance of the platform to handle the growing number of customers and markets. They're looking to improve the efficiency of the messages, as I had mentioned before, but if you're abstracting the message and the data model and some of the complex parsing that happens against those messages out of the application, out of the clients, and placing that into the network, there is a dramatic improvement on the application performance side. One of our customers actually noted that previously they had over 200 different servers, and these servers were working in a REST-based request response pattern, meaning that these sportsbook platforms were being updated upon request, and they had over 200 servers to facilitate that. By moving to a streaming approach, they were actually, and saving the size of the data as it was moving between the applications and the consumers, they actually found that they were able to reduce that down to about 19 servers. Okay, so I've spent some time also looking at some PPH types of sites to enable sports books, individuals to start their own sports books. And one key aspect of that is the power of their back office. And just imagine with a platform that allows you these types of benefits of well over 80% reduction in the application performance, not only 90% reduction of the data sizes as they're transmitted over the network. So this performance is critical, and it ties directly into the reliability. Okay, and lastly, the point here on the performance, geographies. So it's not just performance, but it's about how to segment your data and how to provide data to and the correct type of data into the geography, and then what the rules are inside of those geographies. So the platform not only has to be able to perform, but it has to be able to perform that right data with specific rules about these different types of geographies and what is correct to send and what is not. But let's move on to, that's later in the presentation. Let's move on to reliability here. So again, unburdening the back office infrastructure, as I spoke with about earlier. Handling protocol and services with end user applications. So we're abstracting the high volume of transactions and streaming data into the network, into the intelligent event data streaming platform itself. And then protection from peak events. Applications can continue to process. They can continue to process the bets if the volume is abstracted into the network, providing a reliable environment. And I think we've seen an example that recently inside of the Super Bowl betting that had occurred. So when we look at a sports book, there are many different contributing platforms and applications. These don't necessarily make up specifically a sports book. These all are independent platforms that contribute to a sports book. But when we look at the sports book itself, we've got a scoreboard. We have a live center for data incidents that come in, and we're managing markets and we're managing market lines. Now, there's external applications that work with the sportsbook. There is the market manager, which adds new markets. Bet manager, which contributes and manages what the odds are. The event manager, again. So these different types of applications are all contributing into a sportsbook. And as Push Technology, we may offer additional webinars on each one of these different types of platforms. So keep in tune with us, and we have a location for our webinars, which I will show later. But we hope to provide additional information about e-gaming in general. But let's get back to kind of sportsbook here. And so when organizations are deploying sportsbooks, they're really looking for highly performant messaging. They're looking for the ability to scale to these volumes of messages, not just thousands of messages, but hundreds of thousands and millions of messages. They're looking for platforms to be able to handle large volumes of connected customers, of customers that may be in the thousands, the tens of thousands, in the millions, and how to do this seamlessly without having to restart the infrastructure as you're adding new services or new groups of users, without having to rebalance as you are adding these or define new partitions or introducing new security rules where you also are forced to have strategies in place for that rebalancing types of activities, potentially introducing some outages that have to be planned for. So highly performant, highly reliable, always on, okay, to manage that volume of data. A platform that also gives them the ability to send the right data to the right application in real time, all the time. Okay, so and then through our data wrangling capabilities, being able to segment your data, being able to enrich that data as it traverses between these different platforms. There may be a large feed of data that's coming into our scoreboard, but we're only interested in subsets of that data itself. Okay, and then being able to secure this, being able to offer these services to different brands within your organization, to segment those out by type of brand, by users, being able to provide different classes of service to your premium users, to your high rollers, to your standard members. Maybe there's a connection for all for conversion down the road, and you want to group those users together. Maybe there are different rates and services that you want to apply based upon users. And so security is very important and integral to the sportsbook process itself. And then we had spoken about agility, about the capability to rapidly add new data sources or change data sources, rapidly add new markets, new events. Okay, so and the engineering effort behind this to really make it consistent to no matter what the language is, no matter what the data is, what formats, and to effectively begin to stream that data. So that introduces Diffusion. Diffusion's the intelligent event data platform that really performs a lot of these services that I have described earlier. Diffusion can connect into really any type of data source, any type of data itself. We consume that data. We have the ability to wrangle that data, to enrich it, to segment it, to the appropriate types of what we call topics and organizations that different applications want to consume, and then delivery of that data. And so we have a patented Delta streaming capabilities through this that works either on the consumption or delivery of this data, which most customers see about a 90% benefit in shrinking their data sizes. We're only sending those deltas. We also have time series types of capabilities, historical values of data. And so with this, it may be that we have a series of bets over time, or we could have sports feeds, that events that we also have the ability to store what those events are in memory and be able to leverage that in addition to the current and freshest value being delivered to that particular consumer itself. Okay, so the rest of this webinar is going to be focused on how do you use Diffusion with the Sportsbook application. Okay, so it really starts out with your sources, right? Where you gather your data from. There could be any number of different types of feeds. There could be feeds from different providers out there. There could be feeds of individuals, particularly watching that event. They could be on premise. They could be live feeds, etc. And so we have these feeds coming in a large variety of formats at different rates. And then we have consumers of that data, right? So within our sports book and our betting applications, we have applications focused. Just specifically tell me about these markets. Tell me about this in-play action, okay? Specifically focused on providing cash outs and making decisions about those cash outs, managing the bets, managing the market lines, and how the data gets segmented across all of these different types of applications. And as I describe this, the diffusion solution is used across a wide variety of industries. So you can see some similarities here between gaming and the finance market, for equities, for exchanges, for bankers, asset management, for IoT use cases where we're collecting data from the edge and then processing that and delivering it at scale to millions of users with hundreds of thousands to millions of different topics. So let's move on to diffusion between the sportsbook feeds and the various consuming applications. And as you can see, diffusion sits at the heart of this. Consumers are publishing into diffusion, and then consumers in the sense of the data that's being fed, it's a client, and then we have subscribers to that data on the right. But diffusion then enables the automatic conversion of this data in any format, and you'll see this in a minute, into what we call a topic. And these representations that we have on the screen are topic trees, which we'll discover, but it organizes the data and makes it much more consumable. You'll see our primary interface, which is called the Diffusion console, and then our capabilities around that, around topic management, security, and monitoring. So the first step is consumption of that data, loading it into Diffusion. Now, Diffusion has a couple of mechanisms to do this. We have a rich set of APIs. These are intelligent APIs, which have the ability to perform that delta compression just through using the API itself. The APIs are available in a number of different languages themselves, across Java. This example happens to be in .NET, JavaScript, etc. And we have examples, and this example here is both in the examples directory as we deliver with Diffusion and available in GitHub itself. So if you were to Google push technology in GitHub, you'll rapidly find our adapter deployments inside of there, and you would find also our examples and separate code for doing different things. And code may be a strong word here. So it's really kind of the three-step dance, starting to work with our APIs. In terms of publishing data, loading data into Diffusion, it's three steps, basically connecting to it. And I want to talk a little bit about the power of this connection. Diffusion deploys into multiple different types of architectures and patterns. And so Diffusion can deploy on-premise. Diffusion can deploy in a Sportsbook cloud. Maybe they're in Azure, maybe they're in AWS. And we also offer Diffusion as a service where we maintain the operating system, we maintain the machine, and all customers really do are focused on that particular URL and starting to work with Diffusion itself, like Acme Sportsbook, that this is really it. And they can dynamically switch between these different environments. They can have a completely different hybrid environment. Okay, and the way that they access it is through this one consistent process called a session, and then they connect into that specific session. So if I'm loading data into Diffusion, I want to create a topic. I want to create a structure that I start publishing into. And so it could very well be that, in Acme Sportsbook for NFL in the postseason, I want to start publishing against game 2. So we could dynamically specify what these topics are and start to publish and stream data into it. And then Diffusion also has the capability, if you just send a raw feed into it as well, that it has the ability to look into the data and create these topic trees for you as well. So you can either define them as you're publishing data into it, or you can define the rules inside of Diffusion to segment that data out for you. We'll look at that a little bit later. And then now that I've got my topic, I'm just going to basically add that topic. And then the next step, my third step, is to start to send messages into that topic, into my sportsbook data. And it's straightforward. The component I haven't spoken about is the adapter. So we do have adapters. For example, we have with our cloud deployment, we have a REST adapter. And that REST adapter has the capability to go out and ping an endpoint and call the data from that endpoint and make that immediately available into Diffusion. You name what topic you want to use, and it's a very rapid mechanism to onboard your applications and data into your sportsbook if you have an existing infrastructure that potentially is using REST today, and starting that path for your organization to move from REST or add to your REST services into kind of a streaming approach. We also have JMS adapters. We also have adapters, and we complement Kafka deployments. So we have a Kafka adapter as well to help provide some additional reliability and security and data wrangling on top of Kafka deployments. So let's move on to kind of that next stage here of wrangling the data. And it really starts with understanding that data. I've consumed that data, and it's been published into Diffusion. And now I want to start looking at how to work with that data. And so just to give you an example, that data itself could look like this, right? And it could be a complex structure of data. and really having the ability to segment that data, to understand that data, and get that data into a topic tree. So the tree for a sports book could be, I could have the sport, football. I could have my league underneath that, as maybe the NFL or college. I could have a specific event or match that's going on, right? Like the Broncos and the Chiefs. And then underneath that, I've got my specific markets, the types of markets that customers and gamers can bet against. Maybe I'll have some data streaming into my live center or scoreboard portions of my sports book for that particular event. And then specific odds that customers can bet upon. So it really gives a couple of different ways that our customers can begin to work with Diffusion and work maybe on a event by event as a topic, or maybe generalize it. So there's a lot of flexibility inside of creating data models inside of Diffusion. Here's another example of where I'm using this internally to track bets and manage my cash outs by player, and how I segment and get to that specific player, and basically separate my data. So it's very straightforward of how I get to player ID 1 to the number of bet, and then dynamically updating those cash out values based upon what's going on in real time in that specific event itself, and rapidly being able to get to that data. So let's take a look at how this is plumbed together. So I showed a larger image of how the data looks in the beginning here. We can take data really that's inside of any format. In this particular case, it is JSON, but we do accept text, we do accept binary, string, etc. And so this data then is streamed into Diffusion, right, through our APIs by the Sportsbook application itself, okay? And then we have a number of different subscribers. So in this case, I'm switching gears to potentially NBA, and they want in-play data, right? Maybe they want to go to a specific game itself. Maybe they want to go and follow a specific team name. So there's any number of different types of subscriptions in real time, highly performant, using this compressed data. Again, remember, we're only sending in the changes. So while the data here may look very complex, the data that's being sent is just what's been updated by itself as well. Diffusion also supports the notions of conflation, where we're sending the latest version of the message for those clients that connect at later times. And then we also do have additional compression on top of our Delta capabilities, really enabling that 90% or higher compression ratios against that data. So now that the data is flowing into Diffusion, we can see what the different data modeling and wrangling features are by Diffusion. And so in this case, we're representing the data. It's coming in as a root topic. It's coming in my live center feed for my sports book. I've created my topic tree. Now I can create topic views. And these are created by those single lines of configuration, what we call a specification. And you'll see that growing inside of the next build of this slide. But I'm creating these to really segment that data, to enrich that data. And that comes down to my next topic of being able to perform topic inserts. So now we have data coming in a variety of topics, maybe from different publishers that are publishing into Diffusion. And I want to correlate that data. I want to take that data and combine it with other existing topics. And that's what this insert function is doing for us. And then we have the ability to associate data by specific sessions, by specific connections, by specific users. So let's see some examples of how this works. So kind of the first example is players. And so I may just simply, from this large set of data, map out players, which exists somewhere inside of the data. But because it gets represented in this topic tree, we've already started that parsing process in real time, and again, at scale, at scale of millions of messages. And here, so I've segmented out my players. Now I can add rules where maybe I'm just interested in Eli Manning. right, in specific passers. And so we have a rule that then says, okay, I want to break out all the passers into their individual topics where I can have a consumer that a customer that says, I'm only interested in market lines associated with these quarterbacks or these receivers or these types of even plays that have occurred. And so in this case, we have the ability to dynamically, and that's critical here, dynamically create these topics um, for what your customers, for what sportsbook customers are interested in receiving data about. Eli Manning, etc. And then we could also have the ability, so here, just show me all the receivers that currently have action, right? And so we have the ability to do that with our value feature. And so we can just stream those receivers, what receiver is active, what they've done, but not specifically focused on an individual receiver. Okay, so there's a difference between these different functions. Okay, now when the data first comes in, and likewise here with teams, New York Giants, I spent some time in New Jersey. I was a New York Giant fan, and so I only want to get data specifically about New York Giants. I configure a rule that automatically creates um, topics and topic trees for all of the teams. I don't have to specify them individually. I only subscribe to that individually. And so then I'm subscribing to New York Giants, and then I'm using our expand feature kind of prior to this. And so our expand feature basically takes all of this data and expands it into individual atomic topics which can be subscribed to and worked with. I think this is potentially a great time to jump over into diffusion itself. So let's go there. And here's a diffusion console. And the diffusion console, let me just make it a little bit bigger here. So the diffusion console shows an overview. Okay, it basically shows the health of the environment. It shows what's happening to the topics, how many topics are being published, how many different connections I have, the health and state of those connections of my sportsbook users, and then I could also show specific data that I'm publishing and sharing. And so I could have indicators for team performance and for bet performance, etc. And all of this data is also available via an API. And from the operations side, we natively integrate with Prometheus. And so as data is flowing in, and that one example I showed, here's my topic browser. And so now I've got my sportsbook and my live center feed, okay, that I showed inside that code. This is um, the topic that I've created. And from this Live Center code, you can see the data already looks a lot more manageable. And you can see the size of the data for these different plays that are coming in, okay? So as we scroll through again, we can see the size. Now, in our topic view capabilities, our customers have the ability to expand their data, to use these services in the fashions and ways that I described earlier. And so if I click here, I can see that I've got my live center feed coming in, and I just simply want to expand that data. This is it. This is all that's needed to perform that. And likewise, I could also, let's go ahead and edit it. I could also add additional clauses, and I could add additional mappings. I could do overrides of the performance. I could add delays to this as well, right? So maybe I have different tiers of customers, of different bettors, and I could very simply add a delay by minutes, by seconds, and then I could also throttle the topics as well as data is coming in. If there's data that is not as critical, but is streaming in quickly, I can add throttling rules very rapidly and easily. And I could map one topic to another very straightforwardly, just simply with this map statement by allowing me to move my data and topics into separately manageable containers that then, in topic trees, that then different consumers can get to. I even have the ability to replicate my topics across different environments. And this impacts the branding. So I may have multiple brands and I just simply want to replicate my data from one brand to the next. Maybe I have a partner that I want to replicate data to as well. And so we have both the subscribed fashion, but then we also have the ability to have topics that we replicate over into their environment automatically. Okay. So this is an example of that expand feature. And if I go back into my browser, I look at my sports book. Now, the way I've got this organized is from a demo and educational perspective, right? So customers wouldn't necessarily have a separate section for topic views. But I did want to show that this is the area where I'm creating my views from these rules, from these specifications that I showed earlier. And here's the one that I created, the expand. Now you can see how the data came in as this, and now it's represented inside of this particular topic tree. Likewise, if I go back into my topic views, I've got the ability to, let's say, focus on teams, right? So here, so it's basically mapping, again, my live center feed, and now I'm going into my teams topic tree and using our scalar function to just show us, hey, show me the data about the home team. And it's going to separate data for all home teams. And it shows up like this. I go into my sports book and I come down to my topic views and now underneath teams. And so as I have data that's streaming through Diffusion, you'll see Denver, you'll see Kansas City, you'll see various teams. And then all my clients really do is then subscribe to. Now, this could be a client inside of a sports book visualization. They subscribe to this particular topic. Okay. And I'll show that in a couple of seconds. Okay. So let's kind of move on to the next stage inside of building this application, and that's security. And so Diffusion provides role-based access control, security policy enforcement, and we can become very fine-grained. We can secure on specific topics. We have the notion of roles where we're adding roles, and we can then associate those roles to different principals, what we call users. And you can have separate roles that maybe for anonymous connections, maybe connections that you want to convert at a later time through special events. You could have members, you could have elite members, high rollers, you could have B2B partners, different brands. So you can really have control over whether they have access to the high level topic and all of the data or just specific subtopics itself. And it's fairly straightforward to do this. And I will show that. And so within Diffusion, the console again, if I start looking at security, you can see that I've got different roles for, let's say, for the B2B to expand into casino operations, right, with a B2B partner. Or maybe they may be a casino and they want to expand your sportsbook services. It could be branding within your sportsbook, having a role for, let's say, Acme, having a role for internal use for the bet manager. Potentially, you have a starting tier of members and associated privileges for members. And so, as we start to look through this, and here, this particular member only has the ability to read and select the sportsbook standard services, and you have to find this inside of Diffusion and inside of this platform. I'd like to also to point out that these changes are done in real time. There's no need to restart anything. That as I add capabilities to these, whether they can read or select, update, connect to sessions, how they manage the data itself as it's streaming, it's all done, these changes in real time. So then if I go back and look at authentication, then I start to look at, maybe my premier user, I can see that this user is associated to that specific role itself with those privileges, okay? So let's go ahead and switch back. I'll minimize this. and move on to the next step here. Now, here I'm subscribing to events. So I have a number of APIs. Again, they're all consistent, whether I'm using, in this example, .NET or JavaScript or Python. Python is interesting in that it can subscribe, and you could also build in some machine learning types of processes that are native. And so you can start to stream data, live real-time data, and start to visualize real-time streaming analytics as well. And it works with other platforms as well. But here, it's a three-step dance again. We're connecting to diffusion. We're connecting to the specific topic. Also, note that we could have multiple topics, right? So you can define one session. And that's the session, again, can point to any environment, right? It could point to my replicated environment that I have for my partner, right? Or using our topic replication types of services, or it could really point to cloud. This example, what I'm showing, is working with our Diffusion Cloud today. And then here I connect to the topic stream. Okay, so I'm connecting to a very specific. This could very well be that separate URI that I just showed about the player, connecting to a specific player or to a specific team. And then there's rules that we can apply to this as well, that we can say, give me all the data underneath this particular topic and this particular branch inside of the topic, et cetera. So it's extremely powerful and simple to use um, selectable feature inside of Diffusion. And then here, I'm just basically saying, hey, I'm gonna subscribe. Again, those consistent 3 steps across all APIs. And as mentioned, examples are out there on GitHub. We also have a getting started tutorial on our website as well, where if you click through these different examples, you can see what the code looks like, what these 3 steps look like in whatever language that you so choose. Also note the ability to work with devices with Android or iPhones to be able to stream and consume data from those types of platforms as well. And again, delivering data, delivering those deltas, and just sending that 10% of the difference of the data, and just imagine the performance in the application and in the network itself, and the savings in the lower TCO for infrastructure, both on the network and on the application side, and moving from a REST polling kind of approach, moving into that true and adding to those services a true streaming type of platform. And so, and I mentioned earlier about monitoring, right? So now that we've built this, and I showed that inside of the overview, but one thing I do want to call out is that we have the ability to dynamically create monitoring on specific topics. And so I may have some bets on the left-hand side here, and I can see the number of updates that are going up there. And here I can see the number of changes that are happening inside of the data. But what's important here is that it is showing that compression ratio of, in this case, for this particular situation, of over 99% compression of the data itself. And then again, our customers see up to 90%. In some situations, they see much greater compression. But the ability to add metrics, add collectors, and really start to monitor for performance across any of your data inside of Diffusion. Okay, so as we begin to kind of roll this up of what you've seen today, steps were from consuming data into Diffusion, using the APIs and the Diffusion adapters to start to collect data from any data source, any live feed that you may have. Could also be from different systems of records. You could have databases, you could have REST endpoints, etc., where this data is coming from. And then starting to dynamically create these diffusion topics and segment the data into, market line odds, into event types, into live events that are happening inside of, and incidents that are happening inside of the scoreboard, but using the data wrangling capability to eliminate the code that's needed to do this and allow Diffusion to segment this data for you at scale and speed into potentially millions of different types of topics inside of Diffusion. And then here to securing that data with our role-based access control, supporting encryption of the data itself, allowing additional services for branding, B2B opportunities, general data access rules, and different custom and customer tiers into your sports book. And just think about that live data model that has that historical data inside of it as well, but that live, which is completely configurable, but giving you the ability to secure against those live data models and using Diffusion across your extended enterprise. And now you have a central platform for defining security rules and enforcing it at the edge, and then delivering that data. And so any number of ways, and again, I've spoken quite a bit about our Delta streaming, but being able to consume that data across a number of different APIs, and again, against the data that particular application needs. As I showed earlier, there were a number of different platforms and applications that work with the sportsbook and supporting the information and data that's streamed into that sportsbook, but being able to consume data from those and then being able to distribute this to your end customers, to your partners, et cetera, in real time, that customers are moving from accessing data in 20 to 30 seconds down to, we have one customer that they changed that down to 2 seconds. And then we have customers that have gotten down into the milliseconds of providing this data. So Diffusion and push technology, we have a number of customers inside of the eGaming space. We've got a specific location on our website for learning more about how customers are using Diffusion for eGaming. Likewise, we have other sections for finance as well, and a number of different verticals for the extended use cases of push technology. Please visit this site, and you'll see some examples, some case studies and testimonials from our customers. Likewise, we have a continuing series of webinars that we are delivering, and on our pushtechnology.com site, please look for additional webinars if this topic interests you across different verticals, and continuing with additional webinars about eGaming itself. And if you do so want to start looking at Diffusion, you can try Diffusion Cloud. The sign up is right on our website at dashboard.diffusion.cloud. And you can literally get rolling today with using Diffusion with how straightforward and simple it is to use. Please visit our quick start guide. And we do have different types of quick starts. You could also download our software and run it locally. And so there's a quick start for cloud, and there's a quick start for on-premise. We give examples for real-time applications. Let's say you want to implement chat features inside of your sportsbook. So Diffusion enables that, and through the Diffusion topic feature, the historical values and the time series feature, excuse me. Through that, we have the ability to implement rich chat applications that keep histories of the prior chat itself. We do that seamlessly, again, through that 3-step process. So we have a number of customers looking at us to implement chat features into their sports books or into their additional applications. We have one customer whom is looking to implement it in service, and so in their service application itself. And then explore our developer hub. I had mentioned as well, we have GitHub out there, so connect into developer hub, and then you can see the link directly to the GitHub itself. So with that said, thank you so much for joining today's webinar from Push Technology about building your sportsbook application on top of Diffusion.
That's great, Mike. Thank you very much. We've got a question, Mike, from Mark Kasha. Have you got access there to it? Do you want to pull it up?
Yep, I am taking a look for the questions.
And just Mark Wensek asked a question. Yes, the presentation will be published and a link will be provided.
Okay, so I see a question. How would you go about filtering? And let me move this. Filtering markets or events for a given subset of users for regulatory reasons. So what would happen inside of that case is that we would use our topic views and we would separate out the data that could have sensitivity to those regulatory requirements. And then we would add a role that has specific access to that topic itself and associate that user with that role. So we would stream the data into well-protected and only accessed by delegated users through what I had shown earlier with our topic tree, creating a topic map from that topic tree, adding a role, assigning the user to that role, and locking that data down from access from anybody else. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah, there's a couple of other ways that we could also implement it, but that's one of the ways, and we can follow up that. Mark, we can follow up with that when we're talking in the near future.
Absolutely, absolutely. Are there any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much. Please be on the lookout for additional webinars from Push Technology across eGaming and across other verticals and use. We have a rich library of webinars that have been recorded as well. If you want to learn a little bit more about Diffusion, there's a Diffusion 101 webinar that is available if you connect into pushtechnology.com. Thank you all and have a pleasant day.